For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.
Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on the Auburn Undercover podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Sanders, and we're joined today remotely by Terry Bowden, who I believe is down in Orlando visiting his family.
Yes, that's me. I'm down here in Orlando. I got in yesterday. Anybody traveling, good luck when you go through Atlanta. Not easy. It's a delay here, a delay there, but now that I'm here, I'm enjoying the weather and visiting with my family. But good to be back on for the show this week. And a lot of things happened. It was a big week of football and a big week for Auburn as we move along into postseason play. And then, of course, Auburn has decided, even if they ask them, they will not go to a bowl, I believe, as several other teams have done. And we'll talk about whether that's the right thing or the wrong thing to do down the road. But we'll get to that. And then, of course, the new staff getting on board and a lot of that stuff happening. But there was a big weekend in football. And for those of y'all that whoever you were for, and I guess the big game was Georgia and Alabama. And Alabama somehow made it. Alabama made it to the playoffs. I'm not sure. We all agreed that was the best team in there, but they do, I imagine. But they got whipped pretty strong by Georgia. It really wasn't. They weren't very close in that one.
No, they weren't. You know, and I'm mixed on Alabama simply because I don't think they should be penalized for making the championship game and losing. At the same point in time, there were some. You look at Vandy and the year they had, and some of these others. I am not a Notre Dame apologist. I'm not. I look at the schedule they played, and you played 3 service academies, and you play Stanford, and it just, I'd like to see them play, Alabama schedule or Auburn schedule or LSU schedule and see what they look like at the end after that.
Yeah, I'm tired of the belly aching from Notre Dame fans about not getting in. Join a conference, play a conference championship. Yet you don't want to do that. You want to be your own team. You're kind of in the ACC, but you're not in the ACC. You're in every other sport, but not in football. And so you're doing everybody else a favor. Now, having been in broadcasting for 10 years, when I left Auburn, I will say this from a standpoint of college football. Best television ratings, the best money. Notre Dame is a money getter. That's a name that's why I thought they'd make it, because sometimes they'll make decisions not based on who's the best team, but which we got to pay for these dang games. We got to get this money. We've got to give these networks the best games out there, and usually Notre Dame's one of those. That's why I said you watch. They'll stick them in there. So I was off. To be honest with you, I was kind of proud that they didn't, even if it meant Alabama went in. But Notre Dame belly aching about it, and I just don't. Like I say, I'm with you. We don't need to hear it. They don't need to hear it. They're treated just like anybody else. They didn't play anybody. They lost their 2 first games. They lost their head-to-head with Miami. And so there's an argument, I guess, for them, but there's an argument even more so, I think, that they not get in on this thing. But what's interesting to me, now that we pretty much have a 12-team playoff, and I'm not sure it will go to a 16. Most levels of college football have 16-team playoffs, but we don't have the conference championship type situation. That kind of makes it a long season for the best teams in America to play 17 games in a year. If you go through that, 13 plus 4. But you know what? No matter how many teams you have, 12 or 16, all the disappointments and all the arguments are on the bottom 4, not the top 4. Right. We sit here and do nothing but argue about who 8 through 12 is. We don't talk about who 1 through 4 is. And that's going to be that way no matter what. If this were a 16-team playoff, there'd be somebody that was ranked 17, and there'd be somebody that was 18, and they'd be pissed off because they didn't get in. So I think it's a pretty good selection. SEC has 5 in the playoffs. Big Ten has 3. ACC. Well, you know what? Here's another thought too. As Duke knocks off UVA and wins the ACC with an 8-5 record, they don't even have anybody can get into the playoffs.
No.
And so my thinking was, I kept thinking, I said, people, if Duke were to beat UVA, they're going to let Miami in because they got to have an ACC team in there. That conference, they've got to pay some respect to that conference. And James Madison in the Sun Belt and Tulane in American Conference are both ranked higher than the ACC's champion. And so I believe that probably had a little bit to do with it too, as they're trying to make sure they don't leave that whole conference out completely. There would be a lot of problem there too. So
it was really interesting. The Notre Dame athletic director came out yesterday and really just ripped the ACC and said that they had done irreparable damage. And it's like, well, are you in the conference or are you not in the conference? I mean, if you're in the conference, then come play in the conference championship game. If you're not, then stop complaining about the ACC wanting full members to get in the playoff.
Yeah, I don't think Notre Dame has that pull. I mean, it was like, hey, we're Notre Dame. It's our ball. You come play by our rules, and that doesn't apply anymore. I don't think that applies anymore. And they need to join the rest of the gang. Notre Dame, and it goes all the way back forever. I mean, Newt Rockne, you're talking about some of the great coaches of all time, into the great 30s and 40s and 50s, and all those great teams historically in college football. But that was then. This is now, and it's a different ball game. And conferences are here, and you join a conference and you play in a conference. And Notre Dame has chosen to be on their own. You know, they have a national following. It's the major Catholic university. So Catholics all over. I mean, growing up in West Virginia, you love West Virginia and Notre Dame. You know, if you're a Catholic, then that's every state I've ever lived in. There's our favorite team, and then there's Notre Dame, and we pull for both of them. So they carried that weight forever. I just don't know that makes a lot of difference right now. Although I think the TVs would like to have them in just from a standpoint of getting enough eyes on the game. But again, they don't carry that kind of weight. They're not playing for the national championship every year, although they played last year and played well. But I'd like you say there are other teams. I thought Vandy would have been. I think people would have loved to see Vandy. Vandy did everything that would make them an exciting choice. Now they didn't make it, and they're not complaining. Which brings up the next question: should you back out of a bowl game? Should you not play in the bowl? And Auburn's chosen not to play in a bowl. Kansas not to play in a bowl. Notre Dame not to play in a bowl. Florida State not to play in a bowl. These are 5 and 7s. And some other games, other teams that are better than 5 and 7. And I think we better be careful there. I don't know what the answer is because the calendar's all screwed up with the portal transfers and recruiting and all the things that are happening with coaching changes. But the bowls have been awful good to college football. And so we've kind of and to turn our backs on the bowls turns our back on a lot of communities around the country that have raised a lot of money and have had huge occasions. I mean, there's always going to be the bowls that cover the playoffs, but to knock out all the rest of them, I don't know. You know, there are a lot of things going on right now. It's an unfinished piece of work. Postseason in college football, the calendar's not right. Conference championships don't seem to go with the playoffs quite as comfortably. And then the NIL and the portal transfer and all those things blending together make it so we don't quite have a comfortable calendar yet, and there's more work to be done.
There's certainly more work to be done. And there's been a lot of talking. John Gruden I watched a podcast with him the other day, and having a play-in game, having the conference championship games is great. And I think getting rid of the conference championship games I don't think that's a very good idea either, because I think the Big Ten championship, the SEC championship, I think those things still mean something. But to sit at home and not, you don't make the championship game and then you get an off week, that's not quite right either. So those teams ought to be having a play-in game, So, Vandy and Notre Dame ought to be playing to see who's getting in instead of sitting at home.
Yeah, there's some things that have to be tweaked on this thing, and I agree with you. College football is not the NFL. College football historically has been more of a regional sport. That the Southeast loves the Southeast, the Midwest is the Midwest, and the West Coast. And now with our conference expansions, we've kind of broadened that. But the conference championship games are so important. To be honest with you, Georgia, Alabama, if you don't win the conference championship, coming in second in the national championship doesn't rank. You either got to win it all or that whole playoff thing. The most important thing is that conference championship. And it always will be. Now, if you do make it to the playoffs and you win it all, that will probably be a higher prize. But coming in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth is not going to do much for anybody. Then you're going back and say, man, I want to win that SEC championship. And I know the Big Ten championship and the SEC championship historically are so important. I think that's one of those things. It's just like bowl games. We got to be careful about the bowl games. And I know teams are opting out now, and Auburn opted out. Of course, Auburn was 5-7. I think there's an argument that, hey, we don't deserve to be in a bowl right now. That's not the best thing. But we got to be careful that we protect these bowls that have given lots of money to college football, and that we not turn our backs on them. So I think those are all part of the things we have to address. You got to remember bowl games. People would say, well, who wants to watch that bowl game, that team and that team? Well, I know two sets of fans that want to watch it, the fans of one team and the fans of the other team. Nobody else has to watch it. There's 50 other choices to watch something else. In the old days, you had to watch whatever was on a cable or network, and there was only so many choices. And now you don't have to watch it if you don't want to. So I think we got to be careful there and make sure that we blend in the bowls if that's what we want to do, that we don't neglect our conference championship. But how do we make it? You really can't make the conference championship the first round, because you're not supposed to play the two best teams. Maybe Indiana, Ohio State, or Georgia, Alabama. And you don't want them knocking each other out in the first round. So it can't really be a first round game, because that's kind of what it is to some extent when you start knocking people out. Alabama would say if we got knocked out of it by losing that game, then that's like the first round of the playoffs. Yeah. And we had to play the best team in the playoff, or one of the best two or three teams in the playoff in the very first round. But regardless of that, hey, when you run the ball for -3 yards the entire game, you really don't deserve to have an issue. you can't be too mad on that situation in that football game. But boy, there's a lot of interesting areas that will have to be polished. But going back to our original statement, the one team that I don't think has a whole lot of complaining that they need to be doing is Notre Dame. I mean, nobody put them in their situation except them.
They put themselves in that situation. And, you mentioned the bowls and the calendar. I think the big reason Auburn turned down the bowl was because you've got one staff coming in and another staff going out. And, how do you get people in to coach and figure this out? I mean, especially for, the bowl, it's a tough deal. And I agree with you on the bowls. I mean, a lot of people think that, and I used to agree with that. Who cares about Shreveport Bowl or whatever. But I mean, all these bowls are on TV, and the fans of those programs want to see those teams play. Right. And so, who's it hurting? It's helping the local economy, and it gives those fan bases something to look forward to, and it gives the players something to look forward to.
Well, they have always served as an advantage to those teams that make it. Now, given a 5-7 team, most of the times you can't go. Then they've started having more bowls, and I can see that being one of those where, hey, we don't need to be fooling around with a bowl game, or the coaching change. When you've got a 5-7 team and you got a coaching change, that's understandable. But what you miss when you don't go to a bowl, say you don't make the playoffs, and you turn down a bowl, that's 2 or 3 weeks of practice where you get your team better, where your young kids get practice, where you play young kids, and you get to really look at some guys you might not have looked at before. So that was always the advantage of going to a bowl. You got 2 or 3 weeks of practice that no other teams did not get. So right now, with staff changes and all the portal and all the things going on, there are other factors, just like at Auburn with a new staff and putting that together, trying to make sure your players don't go and meeting with them and organizing those things. I think there are reasons that a 5-7, but I wouldn't want to. I would like to have more discussion next year about when can we opt out if we're 10-2 and we're Notre Dame and we're mad because we didn't get in the playoffs. So we're not gonna do what college football is expected of us, go to a bowl game because we're going to punish everybody. And so I'm not real big on that, but
And they're
there are a
punishing
lot
the
of
players.
issues out there. What's
And
that?
they won 10 games, and they won 10 games. It's not like they weren't going to go to a good bowl.
Oh,
And they're
yeah.
punishing the players, and I get punishing ESPN because you're pissed off, but that's so you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, you're like you say. I mean, at a very minimum, even if you've got older guys who are opting out of the bowl, you get 15 more practices, and you get you get a chance to look at your young guys.
Yeah, and look at all the situations that Notre Dame puts itself into by not being a part of a conference. That's okay. So they play 5 conference teams. Well, they play 3 academies. They have to find teams, and they choose teams that aren't going to knock them out of a bowl or by being too good. But they also have a chance of not having a strong enough strength of schedule. So I don't think, and I was really disappointed that I don't think the ACC said we want Miami more than we want Notre Dame. I think Miami was a choice that Miami represents the ACC.
Yeah.
That, and the ACC wants one of their representatives in. Notre Dame has chosen not to be a part of the ACC, so they didn't have an argument there with the ACC. But anyway, it'll be interesting. I think the playoff should be good, and I'm thinking overall, most of us should agree that it's brought a little more excitement to the end of the season, to football season. There's a lot more games that I would never have been interested in at the end of the season that I was very interested in seeing. I love watching Texas Tech and BYU. I probably wouldn't have watched that in other years if I was in the Southeast. Tulane, in North Texas, or James Madison and Troy. Those were critical. In fact, even people that are SEC people or Big 12 people or Big 10, they probably weren't too interested in Duke and in Virginia. But that became a huge a game, and affecting so many people that were going to play. So I will say this, having coached in the SEC and having coached at the G5 level, every young player that plays Division I football in America now can say, you know what, we got a chance. We got a chance to make it to the playoffs. If we're in the Sun Belt, we got a chance. If we're in the American, we got a chance. Conference USA, we got a chance. Just like last year, Boise made it, and this year you've got a couple of teams. So there's a little bit of that stuff that I like too. Although I heard many ex-coaches or ex-big-time coaches say, "What in the world is James Madison and Tulane doing in this Big 12? They couldn't compete in the SEC," and probably true. But the fact is, you've got a lot of schools out there that they just want one chance. They just want one chance, and I don't know that anybody on that selection committee or on the group of people that put it together thought there would ever be 2 G5 teams in the Final 12. I just don't think they ever thought that would happen.
I certainly didn't,
No.
and certainly never. I remember when Tommy took the Tulane job, and he goes undefeated, and that was, that was Tulane used to be a terrible job. Now you can win.
Well, Tulane, it's funny you jumped to Tulane. Tulane's a little bit like Virginia, Vanderbilt. We don't know what the situation is, but when you're taking portal transfer kids, I mean, that is a very academic school, Tulane and Vanderbilt. Now, I'm assuming all those players were the best academic people on their teams, but I'm not so sure they were. So, and Virginia, which is a very academic school too, Duke, which is a very academic school too. Now you're seeing schools that with the portal transfer, it's almost like you can take a transfer in a lot easier than a high school graduate. Look at the test scores, look at the GPA, or all those things. Much easier to get a college transfer into your school. But it is interesting that we think about that. But yeah, Tommy, my brother, left Auburn. He was my offensive coordinator and went to Tulane. And in '98, they go undefeated. He's a national coach of the year, and he's undefeated in '98. And
I remember it was when we opened with Virginia on Thursday night, and Tommy opened. I forget who they played now, but me and 2 or 3 of my Auburn, 3 or 4 of us. I remember my college friends. We loaded up and drove down. Went to his first game at Tulane because we didn't play on Saturday. So,
Yeah.
but I always remembered that I think it's you went undefeated in 93 and Tommy went undefeated in 98. When did your dad go undefeated?
Hit 99. Yeah,
99.
all three of us. It was kind of amazing that in the decade of the 90s, all three of us went undefeated in the Power Four level, and all three of us were National Coach of the Year, and our teams went undefeated. Dad was the only one that won a championship, but now that we've recognized a championship at Auburn, we have two national championships and three undefeated teams from those eras. But it's Tulane has been good. They had a little bit of a downturn, but Willie Fritz at Houston did a great job at Tulane. Of course, John Sumrall now at Florida did a great job at Tulane. And the biggest thing I'm seeing, you can get a great quarterback to go to these schools. Because let me be honest with you, if you're a great quarterback and you're going to go finish up somewhere, doesn't hurt to have Duke or Tulane or Virginia tacked onto your resume as a college graduate, not as an NFL player, but also as, hey, I got a degree from Virginia or Duke or Tulane or Vanderbilt. Look at the quarterbacks. Every one of them got a quarterback that they would not have gotten, under the previous years. You'd never gotten. Menza probably would never have gone to Duke, except he got paid about $1.5 million, and so a lot of that to be said. That may be a good segue to Coach Golesh, Alex Golesh, and his staff, and the commitment I believe he feels like, and Auburn has suggested that they're going to make in regard to NIL, which may be nearly $30 million a year, or but that's what you got to do. That's a commitment you've got to make, and I would assume Auburn's making that commitment. Auburn's never had any money I've never had a problem putting football in a position where you need to pay the price.
No, and in basketball is that way now. It's pretty amazing. I mean, the number of powerful, rich boosters that have come through Auburn and who really love Auburn and want Auburn to do well, and not just in athletics,
right?
But across the board. So I agree with money's not an issue. It's been all the other things. But Golesh has been, I talk a little bit about merging staffs together, because you did a little bit of that when you got to Auburn. I mean, you kept Wayne Hall. He's kept DJ Durkin, kept the defensive line coach. You kept Joe Witt and Wayne Hall, and I think Rodney Garner.
Well, Rodney Garner was one of the top recruiters in the conference. Has been still is in the conference, so a top recruiter. But yeah, that's what I wanted to see next of Alex Golesh, because staffing a football team is critical, and it's very important. And I'm not going to put the burden on Alex, because the bigger impression he can make that first year is critical, because Auburn's been down. And they believe, and I believe, you've got the right guy, and he knows what he's doing. It's very important that he gets the staff situation right the first time, and that he gets the right people in that can help him move right into success. And, there's two ways to build a football team, either recruitment or development. Recruitment is NIL and portal and high school. Development is your coaching staff. How well can you develop these players, not just strength, but developing their position, their offensive scheme, defensive scheme. And so now that has a lot to do with if the money is going to be there, and apparently it is, then now your coaching staff is critical. And I was going to say, and I made a note to myself this morning, the most important thing he can do is keep DJ Durkin, because he's an offensive coach. He was with Josh Heupel at UCF and Josh Heupel at Tennessee. He's an offensive coach, and he kept Durkin. So that's critical. Just like when I got the job here, I was a play caller, and I was an offensive coach, and I was able to keep Wayne Hall. Not just Wayne Hall, but Joe Witt and Wayne Hall. Two critical people, because Joe Witt, as good a coach as he was, and the number of great players he coached, the recruiting side of him was even better. I think it was just as good. I mean, he went to Blunt High School. Did he go to Blunt? Where did he go to? Blunt High School?
I think it was Blunt. But when the kids got on campus, I mean, he put his arm around you. He'd get after your ass a little bit, but he would. I remember first time I met him, and it was we were winter workouts, and I introduced myself, and I said I responded. He asked me a question. I said, yeah, and he said, "What, boy?" It was yes, sir. In fact, I just got off the phone with him. It's still yes, sir, after 30-something years now. But he the kids loved him. I mean, the kids really played hard for him.
He has been one of the most respected coaches. He was an assistant coach at Auburn under 4 head coaches, 25 years, 34 total years working for the university.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see now that we added these championships, I think he coached in 4 of them now. I know he coached in the 83 and the 93 and the 2004 maybe, and then the actual championship. Did he coach in the Chiswick, or was he gone before that? I mean,
he was off the field at that point.
Okay,
he was the fundraiser,
but he was but involved with 3 national championships and so many great players. And but like I said, staffing is important. Now I will say this: Alex Golesh is not the play caller. I didn't realize that. I thought he might be, but he was able to bring Joel Gordon. Mm-hmm. Joel Gordon was his quarterback coach and the play caller. So I imagine Coach Golesh has some input into play calling because he's been a part of that offensive coordinator situation, and he probably is able to put the input in. But to bring the play caller that he had at USF and the quarterback coach, he also now has the defensive coordinator who let's keep it, just do what we've been doing. Do what you've been doing. That's kind of what I told Wayne Hall. Just do what you've been doing. Let's see if we can fix this offense, And then he got his offensive line coach. He brought his offensive run coordinator.
They're young guys. I mean, all these guys are really, really young guys. I mean, the offensive line coach, I saw his picture a while ago, and I didn't realize how young he was.
Yeah.
He might not even be 30. I mean, he's a young guy. I mean, they're but hey, that's that. I mean, look.
Well, he's got to become the most important thing. He's got to be comfortable because think back of the staff that I brought in. We came in and Auburn was coming off of 2 losing seasons and 3 straight losses to Alabama. And Jimbo Fisher was probably 26 years old. Yeah. And I mean, my brother, I was 36, and Tommy, but means he was 38, and Wayne Hall wasn't 40 yet. I imagine
even in his 40s.
Trickett, an offensive line. And then it was a young group, and it was a young group of guys, but very hungry. And it seems like to me, these guys that are coming in tough, hungry, and ready to work, that we're not. I just get the impression nobody's going to outwork this Auburn staff. Nobody's going to outwork them. They got something to prove. They're all eager to be great coaches, eager to prove that they can do this at the top level in a top program. And so so far he got his general manager. The general manager, NIL, I guess he's a chief of staff type of guy. That's Andrew Warsaw. And he brought him in, and he's comfortable with him because that's who he had at South Florida. And so now he's got his line coach, he's got a defensive coordinator that he wanted, he's got his quarterback coach, play caller, and his general manager. Now, we didn't have general managers and NILs back when I was there, but that would be something that's pretty important if you got a guy that you trust that can kind of pull all that stuff together.
And the other thing, we had for those who haven't listened, we had Joe Wickline on. Not too long ago, long-time offensive line coach. He worked with Golesh at Oklahoma State. Yeah, and I talked to Joe after the hire, and I said, "Hey, look, tell me about this guy. He's born in Russia. He's raised in Brooklyn. Went to Ohio State. What am I?" He's like, "No. And Joe. I mean, he is. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks. He's
pretty down to earth. Yeah, he's pretty matter of fact.
And he's like, no. He's like, all the I's will be dotted, all the T's will be crossed. He's like, he can be funny, but he's a serious dude, and everything will be buttoned up. He said there won't be any loosey-goosey, which I think, again, nothing against you, Freeze, personally, but it's the environment I would expect will be different.
Yeah,
whatever that's worth.
Well, the intensity, I think that it's apparent he has an intensity, a little bit of youth and urgency, and all those things combined with the excitement that he has. I know what the excitement feels like. I know what it feels like to step into that situation, coming from a lower level program, and then walking into Auburn and the excitement that comes with that, and the staff that's there. So far so good. And I think the key is now. And we've heard that they're going to do whatever it takes in NIL money. And you're right. It doesn't take 15 wealthy people behind the scenes helping you. It takes 1 or 2. And we know for a fact Auburn's got one or two that got enough money to help that program get whoever they want. And I think they will. And to me, the whole question, and I think this is going to be something that we're all gonna have our opinions. I mean, Ashton Daniels the guy? Is Deuce what's Deuce's last name? Deuce Knight, is he the guy? Or does this coach say, you know what, I'm gonna get my own guy? Because what if he says, those guys are good, but I want the very best guy in the country here? Do you still say, you know what, these are really good athletes, but if I have a chance to get the very best quarterback in the country to come in here, you better get them. That's one thing I've never seen Ohio State panic about. Boy, I'm gonna make those other quarterbacks unhappy. No, if they're that good, then they'll beat him out. You know, that's the way you got to think. Remember, Joe Burrows went to LSU because he left Ohio State. You know, and who was it that left Georgia, went to Ohio State, won the championship? You know, and Herb left Alabama,
left Georgia, and went to Miami. You know, I mean,
yeah, and Alabama's quarterback went to Oklahoma. You know, it's like you got to be willing to go out there and get the very best. You know, before. And I think maybe Hugh, because Hugh's probably a little bit old school like me or others. You got a quarterback, you build up his confidence, and you don't want to bring somebody in and shake it up. You don't want to bench him one time, and you get too caught up into that. Nowadays, you bring them all the best you can bring in. So you guys tell me, you guys show me which one's going to start. You guys tell me. Because if you don't start, you're probably going to jump in the portal anyway. Okay. And so so I guess the first question is, we love the way Ashton Daniels played. We love the way that Deuce Knight played, but he's got to be sure that's the one he wants. He's got to be sure that's the guy he wants. And I think that's going to be one of those things. He'll probably get advice from every Tom, Dick, and Harry on this internet site right here. We'll all give him advice, but he better go out and get the one that he wants. I guarantee he had a great one at USF. God, was it Byron Brown? Boy, he had a quarterback that was awesome now, about 240-pound quarterback that could run and throw. And he's done a good job so far there. But the quarterback situation, he's just got to address it. Are these the two best that we can possibly have at Auburn to make the biggest impact we can next year? And so that'll be, and I kind of think it is, but I don't think he's going to have to make that call. Because he's got to put in his thing. He needs his kind of quarterback, and they may be plenty good, and he doesn't have to do that. But Hugh stuck too long with a quarterback that couldn't do it. You know, I think
he did, and you know that was really his. You know, he recruited well across the board.
Right.
It was just the quarterback situation. He is just, you know, it just he couldn't. You know, whether it was Peyton Thorne or whether it was Jackson Arnold or it just didn't. He just couldn't get it straight.
Right. Well,
and we talked about the quarterback situation. How would you approach the portal with?
Well, I mean, obviously, the quarterback situation, Ronnie, I think is the most important, and it always will be. And you better not have a good guy. You better have a great one. If you want to take them to the SEC championship or take them to the college football playoff with a chance to win, that needs to be a guy that can get it done immediately. And it can't be a guy that still needs development time. It can't be a guy that can run but can't throw, or can throw but can't run. So it's a little bit of both. And so all those things got to go into consideration. Auburn may have that situation already answered. We don't know. I think the head coach has got to make that call. According to his
Auburn had taken Pavia instead of Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, could change. It changed everything. Probably it would change it. But how about Mendoza? How about the quarterback at Duke? From Tulane. There are some quarterbacks that made a huge difference when they stepped in. And then Texas Tech. Their quarterback had started 35 games there, so they never even changed. And Baron Martin, he is an outstanding quarterback, but he's been there the whole time. But anyway, I would start with the quarterback. But then I would do what I think Texas Tech has did. They've got to get the best front seven you can get. Auburn did a pretty good job doing that, but they need to continue. You got to have a great edge rusher. A great edge rusher, at least one, maybe two. If you're going to put your money in it, go to the defensive line and make sure you got 4 across the board and probably 8 that can flat play. And you got to have edge rushers. because nobody can disrupt an offense better than a great edge rusher who can get to the quarterback 1/10 of a second faster than practice. Whatever they practice at in practice, if you can get a guy that can get there quicker than that, it disrupts the entire offense. So as usual, and I wish Joe Witt was going to be on our show, but we couldn't get him at the last minute. But he knows what that edge rusher is like, having great defensive people and a great edge rushers on the edge that we had. We had Gary Walker on one side. We had Willie Whitehead. We had some pretty good edge rushers and some good interior people while I was there. And those aren't even close to the greatest ones he's had when he was there. But I think, to me, I go from quarterback, I go to that defensive front, and then I go to quarter and cornerback. If I'm on defense, I want that front four and that corner situation to be the best athletes money can buy. The best that we can have, and we may already have them. Then to me, it's the two receivers that can play, and probably at least two great backs. I remember Ole Miss last year, not this past year, year before, they loaded up at running back and everywhere else, and a lot of guys ended up transferring away, portaled away. But to me, you got to have two guys at running back. And I wouldn't have seconds there. To me, that's a lot about have a quarterback, two running backs, two wideouts, defensive front, cornerback, and make sure you are as good as money can buy in the NL package at those positions. And again, I over the years I've learned that you need to have a kicker that can flat kick it. And nowadays, and I'm sure I love the accuracy of the kicker, but nowadays everybody can make 50-yard field goals. I've never seen so many 50-plus yard field goals in college football, and they're very accurate at it.
And the NFL, they're kicking 60-yard field goals.
What's that?
And in the NFL, they're kicking 60-yard field goals.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's funny how that goes. When I was, of course, I'm old, but guys coaching even at Auburn or coaching in the 90s or 80s, your kickoffs didn't even go through the goal. Half the time they didn't get to the goal line. They were returned. You might get it to the 1 or 2. Nowadays, everybody kicks it out of the end zone, and they're 5 yards deeper than it was when I started coaching. It was on the 40 that you kicked off. But you need to but if you think about having a great year, 3 or 4 of your games going to come down to the last play or one field goal. And so that's why don't ever think you can go in, because you want to have a kicker that's very accurate and has the leg to win the big game, because they're going to be 1 or 2, 3 games that come down to a field goal difference. And you got to have somebody that can do that throw. And but it sounds like the portal transfer, the NIL money will be there, and those are areas that we may have them on the team. We can always add to it, and and then you got to be willing to put the money out. To me, if you find the best guy in America, and you offer $1 more than the other guy, you got a good chance to whatever that is.
One thing did jump out at me. And I still think this is in all the NIL era and all this stuff. I still think if you get a kid on campus and he wants to be there and he wants to get a degree from your school, whether it's Auburn or wherever, one thing that really jumped out to me, I was reading a story on Auburn Undercover this morning, and Golesh said, he said, one thing that is different here, like every one of these players, I bring them in, I'm like, okay, so he said at some point, he said, no, I don't have a script. He said, but at some point during the conversation, it comes around, okay, do you like it here? No, I love it here. And it's not, he's like to a player. He said, I've never been a place where every player that I've talked to says, I love it here. He said, now, and they all may not be here because they want to transfer, they want to play or whatever. But as far as he's like that helps with roster retention, because if you got people that love the place and they want to be here, I think he's a little bit, I don't want to say taken aback, but I think he's kind of, I think he's a little bit overwhelmed. I mean, he said something the other day. He said, I've been here 4 days and I already think this is the best place in America.
Well, and again, I mean, it is a little bit different now. He was at Tennessee and he understands SEC football a little bit, because he's been there. Now, he was a GA at Oklahoma State, a GA at Ohio State and Northern Illinois. But as far as the Auburn, it is a special place. I think the players do appreciate it, and it means a lot to them. But like I said, and as we talk about what you got to go get, let's remember that 70% of your team, 75 are going to be guys that you develop, or the guys that love Auburn, that grew up wanting to be at Auburn. And so the majority of your numbers needs to remain high school guys or guys that you brought in that love the program. But don't kid yourself, because Dabo Sweeney found this out the hard way. You better go out there and get key players out of the portal. Because if you got players that are backing up, that are going to be great one day, if you're not playing them, they're going to be gone. And they're going to be people watch everybody else's roster. And people are taking your backups. And if you don't play them enough, you're going to lose them. And if you're not paying enough, you're going to lose them. So it'll be an interesting thing. But you made a good point, and I think most coaches are recognizing it, that you build the nucleus of your team around guys that you develop in the program that grew up loving Auburn, that want to come to Auburn, or maybe from the state, or have been a part of the program for 2 or 3 years, and then you bring in those guys that can the guys that can make a difference in the entire direction of your program. And if the guys on the team don't beat them out, then they'll keep their position. But you can no longer say, "Hey, I'm going to be loyal to my guys. I'm going to be loyal to my guy. It's been here 4 years. He's going to be my." You are loyal. You got his scholarship. He's got a degree. He's got a chance to play football. But if he thinks he can play in the NFL, that he can play, he can be the guy out that I'm going to bring in. And it's got to be that kind of competition, and it's got to be that matter of fact. But like I say, it's got to be a nucleus of players. FSU found this out. I think Mike Norvell, more than anybody, went out there and felt like he could jump in the portal almost completely. Then all of a sudden he loses 2 or 3 games early, and the players they quit on him. All you do is watch them play. They quit.
Colorado. You got the same situation. In
Same situation.
And it's not going to get better out there either.
I'm obviously, I think, Dion played for my dad, and we're close to him in our family, but I think that's one of those things that you could see it coming. There's just it's hard to build the football team and the overall football team that it means a lot to. So I think that's the comment that you were alluding to when you talked about either Philip Marshall said that in his article talked about Golesh feeling like the players were they all loved Auburn. They all loved Auburn.
Story, but yeah, same point. It was
Jason. It was Jason who wrote that. That's right, exactly right. And that'll be a key in that regard. But anyway, it'll be interesting as they come now and try to get out, because I believe the players you already kind of figured out which ones feel like they're jumping in the portal. Mm-hmm. But I think it's quicker he can evaluate, and they can evaluate and make sure the NIL package is comfortable, to them. I think the old we used to say that I want to come to Auburn, but I just can't. That usually means you got to give them a little more money. That means you got to do a little more NIL package. That I love Auburn, I want to be at Auburn so bad, but then make sure you got a good NIL package, because that usually means somebody else is offered a little bit more, But my mama wants me to go there, and because that NIL package is probably being discussed by mom and dad and everybody else and all that. So,
and you can't blame the kids, no. A lot of these kids have nothing, and and if you got a chance to change something for your family, and you go from making nothing to all of a sudden you got a chance to make $1 million a year, or $1.2 million, or $1.5 million.
Right.
I mean, it's you can't blame them. I mean,
no, not at all. No, I think that's that was the point. The reality is that those are their driving forces. They're their driving factors, And so you got to be willing to go out there, I guess. And again, as Golesh wants to make an impact quickly, you want to get this thing moving in the right direction quickly, to gain the confidence of your fans and of your players, and that whole positive feeling. People have been waiting a long time now at Auburn. It's been too long. Unbelievable loyalty of the fans after 5 losing seasons, to still be filling that stadium up and having the atmosphere that we had against Alabama was pretty amazing.
It's really pretty amazing. I mean, It really is. I'm not sure that there's anybody else in America, and I say that with I know I went to school at Auburn, but I say that with. If I saw the TV ratings the other day, and I'll see if I can pull them up here in a minute. But it was, in fact, I've got it right here. As a matter of fact, let me pull it up. It was TV ratings. Here we go, right here. I got it. Now this is the 10 most watched teams of the 2025 season: Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee, Auburn, Michigan, Texas A&M. Now, one of those schools had a losing record this year, and one of those schools has had 5 straight losing seasons. Guess which one? It's
That's right.
it's pretty amazing. I mean, it really is. Auburn people, not only the stadium, TV, merchandising. I mean, you name it. It's pretty amazing fan base. It really is.
It really is. And all right, before we go, let's talk about the brackets and see what we like and what you don't like. As far as the teams that got in, of course, the four seeds: Texas Tech, Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State. I think pretty much everybody's comfortable with those 4 being at the top of the board as far as those. And then the teams that Oregon, the teams that got a bye or got the home field advantage: Oregon, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, and they got the home field advantage for the next round and get to them going. And but anyway, what are your thoughts? Any of your thoughts after watching the playoffs and watching the way the games were played?
I think you got to give Kurt Cignetti a ton of credit. I mean, those guys play with an edge. Just watching the game, I mean, I thought Ohio State was I think they were clearly more talented. I thought that, I mean, they're probably the most talented team in the country, but you talk about playing hard, smart, and together. That's Indiana. Quarterback deserves a lot of credit. Kurt Cignetti deserves. I mean, the Indiana is the losingest program in the history of college football, and first outright Big Ten championship in I think 80 or 90 years, and first one that's they shared one I think 58 years ago or something. So, unbelievable job. It's and then Texas Tech. I was reading a story about them a couple of days ago. Their biggest booster, I guess, said, "Hey, look, this is our opportunity. Let's go take advantage." And he said, we were organized and we went out and got every guy we wanted. And he said, not only did we get every guy we wanted, we picked the right guys. He's like Coach McGuire and his staff. We were very organized and had a plan. And so, CJ Ayu, who is the defensive line coach at Texas Tech, has done an ungodly, believable job. I mean, those guys, and they're great players, but he ought to be coaching in the NFL. I mean, he's and he played in the NFL for a long time. Those guys have really done a phenomenal job. And we talked about Notre Dame earlier. I obviously I'm not an Alabama fan, but I thought they deserved to be. And I don't think that you can. The SEC championship game wasn't close, but I don't think you can punish Alabama for playing in the championship game. I think that's tough to do. You look at I have a hard time with both Tulane and JMU over a Vandy or over some of the other teams that and again, I'm not saying that JMU and Tulane they had great years and deserve a lot of credit. I'm not sure they make it through an SEC schedule or even a Big Ten schedule.
No.
Same rate.
I think JMU and Tulane are both in because that's the rules they set up. The committee got stuck with their rules. Their rules said this, and oh my gosh, I never would have in a million years imagined that it would be the Sun Belt and the American Conference. And yet so they couldn't say no. They had to take those unless they somehow would rank 8-5 Duke ahead of James Madison, which is kind of hard to do. As bad as Duke played pretty bad at times, and so anyway, they were stuck playing that. But I agree with you, Texas Tech, and I was Texas Tech to me, Georgia, Texas Tech, Ohio State, Indiana. As I looked at the postseason, those teams stand out to me, and they're the top 4, and they really, Georgia is projecting. They're trending upward. Every game they trend upward. Texas Tech has been, they've won every single game of the season by 20 or more points, 11 wins. And the quarterback didn't play in the one game they lost. And we talked about all the portal transfers. Do you know both their linebackers have started over 40 games there? That's 4 years now. Both linebackers have started over 40 games at Texas Tech. So the quarterback over 30. So they're mixing, they're blending in to kids that love Texas Tech and the portal transfer guys, but did a good job there. But I really like those 4 teams. I think are the ones that I think are my favorites. I'm like you. I don't think the G5 schools will get beyond the first round, but still doesn't mean we ought to have a mechanism to get at least one team in. And I'm glad that we do. The problem with Alabama, just say they weren't in the SEC championship game. Were they the best 10-2 team out there? There's other. They left a lot of 10-2. I mean, I'd rather say Notre Dame. You're 10-2. Alabama. You're 10-2. Which one should go? It might be a Notre Dame, or Vanderbilt.
Have a play-in.
Yeah, but
instead of the championship game, have a put Vandy playing Notre Dame and change the rules and have Vandy play Notre Dame and whoever else and figure out who gets in. I mean,
that's right. Well, I imagine we'll see some of that changing stuff for next year, but it should be interesting, and we'll have kind of a week off. We got the Army Navy game, but kind of a week off, and then get back to it. But we'll have plenty to talk about next week as we prepare for the postseason and the great changes that are happening right now at Auburn. I think everybody's kind of excited, and I'm like you. There's a confidence. And I don't want to say arrogance. There's just a cockiness on Golesh, but he's also one of those hard-nosed looking guys that has earned everything he's gotten so far, and that suits Auburn people just fine. And
you're exactly right. It suits Auburn perfectly. And I guess having been at Auburn for 6 years and having been around, you've coached at 3 schools in the state. My biggest concern, and I don't think it's as big a concern as it was 10 years ago at all. I'm not sure that a guy who was born in Russia, was raised in New York, and went to Ohio State could have ever gotten the Auburn job. But it's a different era. How does he fit? The booster situation at Auburn. How do you? Harsin had a really, really, really difficult time. Of course, he didn't try. Golesh is personable. He seems to want to, he seems to have embraced Auburn so far. It's been a week, but he seems to have embraced the place already. And but what are your thoughts? How does he fit, and how does he navigate that?
Well, first of all, he's smart enough to see the situation, and he'll know who he's got to go visit with. He'll know who he's got to sit down and have a talk with, and he'll figure it out pretty quick. But also believe me, he's going to go out there and do what he knows how to do, coach football, and do it like he wants to do it. So, be honest with you, I think Auburn people want the hard nose, the tough guy, type of guy. I think that's what he knows that Auburn people want. So I think, but you're right. I mean, it is a different day and age, where where you come from and what you've been a part of. But that's not football nowadays. It's a little different. But he's different than anybody. I mean, his background is a little different than anybody to have come over as an immigrant from Russia and trying to get away from the Soviet Union. But I think Auburn people kind of buy into that, kind of buy into the fact that he was strong enough to get out there and prove himself. That he didn't have a dad that was a head coach like I did. He didn't have a dad, a bloodline of all that type. He went out there and started on his own, did a good job. So
he's worked his way. He's worked his way up, and hard-nosed guy. And like you say, that certainly fits Auburn.
Should be interesting. Yeah.
Before we go, give me your thoughts on these first round games. I mean, you've got James Madison in Oregon and Alabama and Oklahoma.
All right, I'm watching. Well, I don't think. I mean, James Madison had a good. It was a tougher win against Troy. That game was tougher at the beginning than to the end. They scored at the end, but I don't think Oregon's really a good football team. They can run that football. They've got great defense. And I don't think that one a big one. And Ole Miss beat Tulane by 15, 17 points last time. No, I don't know that Tulane can get that much better at this point. It's not like two teams that were pretty close and one of them played bad. Tulane was playing their best football, and so I really don't see that one. I think the two that we want to watch is Miami and Texas A&M. And Alabama, Oklahoma. I think those two will be great football games. And I've seen Oklahoma, Alabama. I really don't care who wins that one. I'm not. You know how it is. I don't care. But I love the other one. I love the Miami Texas A&M game. It gives us two teams that hadn't played. That'll be a very good game. I really don't. I tend to think Texas A&M, their body of work there has been better. that they'll get through that. But Miami, once they decided they screwed up the whole season and they were afraid they messed it up, they play pretty daggum good because they've done a great job in the portal. And they have a lot of history. Their head coach played on 2 national championships at Miami, and he knows what it means down there to be successful. Those are the 2 in the first round that I really like that'll be coming 2 weeks from now, and that'll get us into that second round. And if it falls out like we said, that would put Texas A&M against Ohio State, Ole Miss and Georgia. That's a repeat. Alabama, Indiana, that'd be a good one, and Oregon, Texas Tech. So really, if it falls out like it looks, I think people can go one way or the other on Miami, Texas A&M, Alabama, Oklahoma. But it should fall out about if it's likely to fall out like that, it should get real good. I will say that. I think it's going to be a good playoff.
Yeah, and and you look at Georgia beat Ole Miss, and it was a great game. And Oklahoma beat Alabama, but Alabama's got to go out to Norman. I think Oklahoma's really, really good on defense. They don't beat themselves. They're not great offensively, but they don't beat themselves. Yeah, they could do some things better. But just talking to a couple of coaches out there, they feel like that they're they got to 10. In fact, one of the coaches told me not too long ago, he said, we're about like Auburn. He said, we've just figured out a way to win 10. They figured out a way to lose 7, and that's, but he said, talent wise, because they played earlier in the season. He said, but talent wise, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
We're pretty close.
I've made a statement. I felt like watching so many of Oklahoma's games that to win the national championship, I don't think they're good enough on offense to go all the way. They're good enough on defense, so they can knock off Alabama. And Alabama, they rushed for -3 yards against Georgia. -3. I mean, that's you're going to get beat if you're one-dimensional and you're playing Oklahoma with their defense, and their quarterback will do just enough good things to win the football game. So Alabama's got to. I mean, I know those people at Alabama are unhappy about the way they ran the football. Were not able to run the football at all, and that other stuff. When you get down to the playoffs, it's not as important to us. So that should be interesting. We'll have a good chance to see how that goes and see where it is.
Who was your? We've had a lot of teams have had great seasons. Who's your coach of the year before we go?
Gosh, it's Kurt Cignetti probably right now, just because of how far. And you know what? It's like me. Pavia should be the Heisman Trophy winner. Mm-hmm. Nobody has had a season like him. Nobody has had an impact on a program. I know he's up there, and I think if the voters, and I was a voter for 10 years on the Heisman, if the voters will look at the background of the quarterbacks, not just who's lucky enough to be on the best team, and Mendoza does a good job, a great kid, but I just think Pavia has been a generational quarterback for Vanderbilt and has taken them their first 10-win regular season ever, and has put the whole team on his back, and has done more exciting things and beaten top 15 teams in his 2 years there, going back to number 1 ranked Alabama. He's pretty impressive.
And had a great run at New Mexico State.
Sure did.
His team better. And physically, I'm not sure, is he physically the best quarterback in the country? Probably not. But I mean, he's meant more to his team, as much or more to his team as anybody in the country.
Well, and I think when you go back to the coach of the year, I think you got, if they pick that after the playoffs, we'll have a better idea. Texas Tech, if that coach can take them all the way through at Texas Tech, you got to say he's done a heck of a job in the overall package of it. Indiana's just been phenomenal. I'm trying to get through the whole show without mentioning Lane Kiffin's name. I don't think he would get it no matter what. But I'd love to see his team go win without him a little bit, But they got Georgia coming up, but anyway, I think it's going to be a little bit. I think we'll know who's going to win the Heisman before we'll know who's going to be the National Coach of the Year. I think it'll come up on down the road.
No doubt. Before we go, talk a little bit about our sponsor.
Yeah, Tom Haley and the Haley Family Foundation. Again, I can't thank Tom enough for sponsoring this show and allow us to come on each week and talk about Auburn football and just shoot the bull a little bit. And great Auburn family, great Auburn supporter. And we thank Tom and all those people that work for Haley Red Development. And we appreciate them for sponsoring this show.
And thanks to everybody for listening. Click like and subscribe below. It helps us out. It helps support our work, and it keeps us in your feed. And we'll see you next week.
All righty.
For more than 100 years, the Haley Red Family Foundation has proudly supported Auburn University scholarships, investing in students' dreams and brighter futures. For over 25 years, we've also stood beside the Sheriff's Girls Ranch, helping young women find hope and opportunity. The Haley Red Family Foundation, building generations of success.